Apprentices, quiet! The excited chatter in the classroom almost drowned out Tolwen's exasperated shout. You'd think that none of you had ever seen a simple box before. From her seat near the back of the classroom, Lina Winterbock snorted in amusement. An archivist, even a junior apprentice like her, knew there was no such thing as a simple box. Not when that box had been shipped from the meteor fields up north. The classroom for archival studies was an amphitheater, the desks arranged in a semicircle on stone tiers, carved out of the cavern's natural rock formations. At the bottom, in the teaching pit, there was a scarred oak table and a podium beside it for the teacher. The box that had caused the pandemonium sat in the middle of the table. Lina's teacher, the archivist Tolwen, stood behind the podium. His apprentice and assistant Simon stood at Tolwen's side, scowling at all the noise. Though, to be fair, the sour expression could just be Simon's version of a smile. With him, it was hard to tell. As Tolwen swept his gaze over the 50-odd students assembled in the classroom, Lina turned her attention away from the box and sank as low in her seat as she could manage, without actually falling to the floor. It didn't matter. The teacher's sharp eyes found her anyway, and narrowed as his lips pressed into a thin line of displeasure. Lina forced herself to stare back at him without flinching, but it wasn't easy. Tolwen's glare felt like a spider skittering down her spine, a large, hairy spider with fangs. Given the incident last year, Tolwen's reaction to her wasn't that surprising. But Lina kept hoping maybe he would fall and hit his head and somehow forget the whole unpleasant business. Normally, she would never wish a head injury on anyone, but it might make her days in archival studies a bit easier. Lina released a tense breath as Tolwen finally looked away from her, and she eagerly refocused her attention on the mysterious box. What was Tolwen hiding in there? Some new bit of technology? A painting? Or maybe even a manuscript? Mystery poured from the depths of the box, filling Lina's mind and quickening her heart. Where do you come from? How far have you traveled? What secrets do you hold? Lina had never been to the meteor fields, or the scrap towns where all these strange objects were gathered. They were located far to the north of the archivists' strongholds, in the Marrow Kingdom. But she'd heard plenty of stories of the violent meteor storms that ravaged the land up there. For reasons that even the wisest of the archivists hadn't been able to discover, the boundary between their world of Solace and other lands was thin in the meteor fields, and on the night of each full moon, it dissolved completely. With no barrier, objects from other worlds tumbled from the sky in clouds of poisonous green dust. It was the poorest people in the north, the scrappers, who bravely took on the task of harvesting these meteorites. They cleaned up whatever objects were still intact and sold them at local trade markets to make money to live on. The scrappers' best customers were the archivists, who bought up as many of these otherworldly artifacts as they could. They paid special attention to any object that might reveal hints of what life was like in unknown worlds. It was the archivists' mission to preserve the artifacts and record whatever knowledge they gleaned from them, both for its own sake and because they believed that the more people learned about these other worlds, the more they would come to understand their own. It was a unique calling, one that, even as an apprentice, made Lina's life very different from the lives of people living in other lands.